Anti-Robert Mugabe protest leader Evan Mawarire has been arrested upon his return to his home country. The Zimbabwean pastor fled the country last year after leading protests against the government. Let's get the latest on this story now. Joining us in studio is senior reporter at the Daily Maverick, Simon Allison, who just happens to have returned from Zimbabwe a couple of hours ago. Simon, thanks so much for coming in to talk to us. The last we heard, Evan Mawarire was facing treason charges. Have any other charges been added?
Well, what's happened today is he has actually appeared in court. The charges have been officially lodged. They include subverting the constitutional government, as well as the rather strange charge of insulting the Zimbabwean flag. Of course, Mawarire would argue that he is trying to uphold the values that the Zimbabwean flag is supposed to stand for.
I'm wondering what the state of the courts is. How easily will he be able to defend himself?
You know, I've asked a few people this question, and generally the answer I've received is that the lower level courts, so the magistrates' court where he is today, and sort of similar courts, are sometimes prone to political pressure. But the higher courts, the High Court, the Supreme Court, etc., those tend to be more fair in their application of the law. So the idea is that even if he is held and convicted in this court, there should be hope for him in a higher court at a later date.
So he could appeal. The possibility would exist, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. We are still a long way from that. Today is just, the initial charges and to decide whether he will remain in custody or be released on bail.
I must just ask you, because you were in Zimbabwe a year ago when a whole lot of his supporters turned out as he was being taken into custody or to appear in court for almost the same charges. What's happened to all Mawarire's supporters in the space of a year?
It was quite a weird feeling of sort of semi-deja vu I had yesterday. I was wandering around the magistrates' court, which is the strange circular building, and you just go round and round in circles. And I was doing exactly the same thing last July 2016, waiting for Mawarire to make an appearance, for him to be brought by the police. But last time, in July, there were thousands of supporters crammed inside the court, outside the court, chanting, praying, singing, waving flags. And many analysts have said that that is the reason why the judge in July was forced to uphold the letter of the law, because if he didn't, there might have been a riot. The government was scared. But Mawarire has returned, and his support has not come back in force. I think many people were very disappointed by his decision to go into exile. They felt that he had betrayed the cause. There's also a sense among some civil society activists that they feel he's getting too much credit for all the sort of resistance that's happening. He's giving speeches in places like Harvard and other places in the US, while they are on the ground in Zimbabwe getting beaten and arrested and tortured, but they aren't getting the limelight. So there's a lot of issues he has to work through.
That's quite a dilemma, because he knew he was in danger, or he believed he was in danger. Perhaps that was justified. But having said that, the fact that he did escape to the United States and was lauded for all that he had done, how does he claw back the support that he lost?
It's such a difficult question. And I interviewed him a couple of days before he returned to Harare, and you could see that this was a man really grappling with how to handle his newfound fame. Remember, he's just an ordinary guy. He made this Facebook video which launched this flag, and then suddenly found himself swept up by this incredible momentum, and he rode that wave, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a seasoned political operative. He has to make decisions to protect his family. Maybe he gets it wrong sometimes, but can you blame the guy?
Well, you're making a very interesting point about him being just an ordinary person. We know that there's some negotiating going on behind closed doors between opposition politicians. How do they perceive Evan Mawarire? Is he someone who can be included in their future plans?
Well, publicly the opposition parties have said, we of course condemn his arrest and his treatment by the government. But privately, when I interviewed Morgan Tsvangirai last year, he was quite dismissive of Evan's contribution, saying it was just a sort of flash in the pan. And when I spoke to another major opposition party, when I was there now, they said they were actually very worried about Evan coming back, and that his presence, he's a wild card. They don't know what he's going to do. He might disrupt those very delicate negotiations for an opposition coalition. So there's a lot of fear about what he brings to the table because no one really knows.
It's going to be very interesting as the story develops. Simon Allison, thanks so much for talking us through that initial part of the story. Simon Allison is senior reporter at the Daily Maverick.